What prevents India from becoming the next warmonger hegemon like the US and China in the name of national interest when we inevitably go super, as in superpower? If we hypothetically wear the shoes of the Americans, would we too bomb innocent people and fund terrorist organizations? Look, there is no inevitability to India becoming a superpower. It's not guaranteed. Please understand this. Let's not be overconfident. I'm not sure if we even want to be the kind of superpower the Americans are, having military bases all over the world and having a multitude of vassal states and doing regime change operations and funding terrorism and propping up puppet governments and dictatorships. Do we want to do that? But so that's the question. Right? That's what the question is about. So if you want to predict the future behavior of a person, the best way of being able to do that is to look at their past behavior. Please understand that. Simple human psychology. If you have person X and you want to know what is this person likely to do in the future, what sort of behavioral patterns can we expect from this person in the future, all we have to do is look at the past of this person. What kind of past history and record does the person have? That's an excellent indicator of how that person will behave in the future. Similarly, the same goes for nations and civilizations. Every nation, every civilization, every culture has a personality and a set of traits, behavioral traits, just like a human being. So we know how the Americans have behaved the past century. We know how China has historically behaved, especially after the Chinese Communist Party took over, right? 1949 or thereabouts. Now the question Kushagra is asking is that if hypothetically India becomes a great power, superpower, if hypothetically we are in the shoes of the Americans, which means we are a superpower, would India too start bombing innocents like what they did in in Vietnam, Laos, Iraq, Libya, etc.? Would India also bomb innocents? Would India also fund terrorists like the American funded Pakistani terrorism and all that? Would India also do that? All you have to do to answer the question is look at India's past. Now, India has a rather lengthy past. 10,000 years, roughly, of which we have a very good understanding of at least the past 2.5, 3,000 years, and a decent understanding of the past 5, 6,000 years, the Saraswati Sindhu era, period, phase of Indian history. We also know that Indians have actually in the past ruled over foreign lands. It is known, and I can give you evidence of that. So once again, we go to the map. Okay, you go westwards and you come to Syria and Anatolia. Here you had the kingdom of the Mitani and the kingdom of the Hittites. Which the Mitanis, when did they rule? About 17 or 1800 BC, they started ruling in this region. And until 1500 or so BC, they were ruling as a kingdom. The Mitani ruling class or aristocracy spoke Sanskrit, late Vedic Sanskrit. How do we know this? There is evidence of that. So there is, what's the evidence? There is a peace treaty between the Mitanni and the Hittites, these two neighboring kingdoms. They had some differences and some disagreements, which probably led to some warfare or whatever. And then there is a peace treaty at Bogas Calais. And that peace treaty was written down in an inscription in the cuneiform script between the two kingdoms. And in this peace treaty, a number of gods are invoked as witnesses for sealing and binding the treaty. Who are these gods? Mitra, Varuna, the Ashwin twins, and Indra. So these gods were invoked by both sides, the Mitanni and the Hittites. What does it tell you? That the ruling class of both these nations or kingdoms worship these gods. Now, these gods are Vedic gods, which tells you that the ruling class of both these nations or kingdoms was Indians. And we know that the Mitani ruling class, aristocracy, they spoke Sanskrit, late Vedic Sanskrit. So this inscription is an evidence of that. And then you have the horse training manual of a guy called Kikkuli. Kikkuli, the horse master who trained war horses. And he wrote a detailed manual on how to train war horses. That manual, you can still implement it today and you will get extremely well-trained war horses, battle horses. So this manual Kikkuli wrote this manual in the local Hurrian language. Hmm? But unfortunately, in the local Hurrian language, you could not express certain technical and scientific terms. So for those terms, Kikkuli had to use his mother tongue, which was Vedic Sanskrit. So that is the first actual inscriptional evidence we have of late Vedic Sanskrit anywhere in the world. The oldest, about 1500 BC, actual written inscriptional evidence. But note this, that Kikkuli wrote the text in the local Hurrian language. And also note that most of the gods that were invoked and praised by this kingdom were the local Hurrian gods. But when the peace treaty happened between the two kingdoms, it was the Vedic gods, because both the aristocratic classes, ruling classes, were of Indian origin. So what it tells you is that these Indians who ruled over this far off land, they tried their best to write in the local language and to honor the local gods and customs. They were not colonialists. They did not impose their religion on the natives. They did not impose their way of life and their language on the natives. That's Indian culture. That's what we are like. So we have in the past ruled over various kingdoms, Central Asia, Syria, Anatolia, various parts of the world. Indian origin kingdoms in Southeast Asia, etc. Also, we have never been colonialists. We have never been settler colonialists. We have never been extractors of wealth and resources. We have never been imperialists. We've never been hegemonists. We have never imposed our way of life and culture and religion and language, etc., on others. We have assimilated. So we will behave in the future also in our own way. We will not bomb innocents. We will not fund terrorists. That's not our way. But we may still rise. Yeah. If the gods so will. And if we please the gods with our actions.